when you asked me this question, right? So it sort of made me think deep about like what was the real motivation for me to become an entrepreneur. And the way I could understand about my personality, is that it is a combination of creativity plus confidence plus empathy, and then multiply it with restlessness, right? So if somebody has that kind of a personality, then being entrepreneur is the most natural state, right?
Okay.
So, and if you're not doing entrepreneurship, then probably you're under stress. You don't feel that you are at ease, and you always have this craving of starting up. So that is exactly the case with me. It's a combination of creativity, confidence, empathy, and restlessness. The positives of starting a company with friends is that it is extremely easy to start, right? And you actually have a lot of fun time, and you keep adding to the good memories, right? If you have to retain the same level of friendship, there's a huge trade-off. And it actually requires good amount of effort to remain good friends at scale, right? Yeah, so that's the only drawback. Yeah, because you have to, at scale, you have to manage expectations, because people have different rates at which they grow. People have different levels of ambitions. People have different challenges, right, which are very, very personal, right? So at scale, all of these things totally become naked exposed, and then you end up knowing people's weaknesses and people's strengths, and would you be comfortable with them, right, when a lot of things are at stake. So at scale, it would just be tremendous effort to remain good friends. Yeah, absolutely. I think this is clearly some sort of a bug for me. And as I said, right, the combination of restlessness with some sort of empathy for problems, and then the creativity to solve it, right? That wouldn't really keep me away from being an entrepreneur again, and that's the case. So I deliberately took a 2-year long break, and I wasn't really delving into any space per se from a startup perspective. I was just exploring a lot of things, right, from healthcare to blockchain to online jobs. Sort of explored a bunch of these areas, and then decided to pick the next wave, right? So whatever is going to be the next big thing, what are some early tailwinds, right? What are some existing tailwinds which are pointing towards the next big thing, right? So, and remote to us was very clear. It's very hard to get this framework right, but broadly it is known as the founder idea fit or the founder market fit, right? And for me, there were a couple of boxes which had to be ticked if for it to be a great idea for me, right? One was that there was this very strong desire to do something global, right? Because I've sort of grown as an entrepreneur using global products like Facebook, Google, right? And very high respect for these people that have created global products, right? And so I wanted to also at least attempt on a problem which is global. That was the first requirement. Second was, I'm a very techie personality, right? So not really good with ops oriented businesses. If I independently were to do it. So again, the second tick box was basically if it is a pure product or pure tech play, right? And the third thing was, it should be something which becomes the new way of doing something. It shouldn't be like a niche thing. Or a very niche problem that you are, let's say, solving for, let's say, account aggregation, right? It should be the new way of doing something which we already are doing. So Airmeet is for knowledge professionals a new way to grow and expand their knowledge and network. In the current shape and form, Airmeet is focused on community managers who want to, let's say, catalyze the community around an idea or a particular concept. But then ultimately, the core customer is the knowledge professional like you, me, people who are LinkedIn users, people who have good internet connection, good laptops, right? And we are already, passionately curious and on the cutting edge of our domains, right? So Airmeet is going to be the new way for them to expand their knowledge and network. Zoom is basically a tool, right? And you could replace Zoom with like a Google Meet or tomorrow any other thing, right? Because video communication in 2020 and onwards is a commodity, right? So WhatsApp has actually made video communication enter our personal lives, right? So now with my family I do WhatsApp calls, video calls, and not just regular WhatsApp voice calls, right? So as a civilization we are becoming so comfortable with video communication and video interactions that video is now expected to enter different use cases, right? And make those use cases a lot more efficient, right? So we are not a tech focused company, we are mostly a product focused company, and we are basically focusing on a use case. And we are not just a tool, we actually capture and focus on a lot of residual value which these video interactions actually enable, right? So for example, in this conversation there is a lot of residual value to it, right? I'm not just an IP address who has access to a particular link. This platform is recognizing me as Lalit Mangal, and it's basically retaining a lot of residual value about it. So there should be in future there will be a profile of Lalit Mangal, and whatever public Airmeets that I appeared, it should be part of a profile that I would value and would want to maintain. So it's definitely moving towards a network and less like a tool. So we have actually grown 1,000 times. The platform usage is 1,000 times more than what it was before the COVID, and it is stable and actually continuously growing, right? So we are actually doubling our user base every 15 days. So that is the level of growth that we were not really hoping for so soon as a product. So we are still late stage beta, and we still have to handhold communities which start to use Airmeet, because some of the product flows are not really built for self-serve till yet. So that is, even though it's a big hurdle from a external perspective, but still the motivation to use Airmeet is so high, and this repeat usage and customer love is so great that despite all these friction points, people are still going through it and loving it and using it more and more, right? Okay. So the challenges have been basically to get all of it done with a very small team, right? And it's only last week that we actually got the seed funding hit the bank, and it was it was a very thin budget that we were actually running the company on. So hats off to Vinay, Manoj, my co-founders, who have been running a very tight ship, sleepless nights, and a lot of hard work. And we're very fortunate to have smart people join our team early on. So everybody, like each of those early team members have actually worked like a one-man army during this last few months, and we have been able to successfully scale only because of their effort. I think you can't really explain this process, right? So it's basically it's one of those things which occurs to you, right? It's like it just happens. It's like it clicks. So there were some certain criterias for us to decide a name. One was that it had to be something which is short, which could become a verb, and should ideally not be a misspelling, right? And it should also it should sound emotionally uplifting. My personal opinion, and our like opinion in the team also, is that remote is the most natural way to work for knowledge professionals, right? It may not be the best way to work for, let's say, certain industries, right? Let's say production units, or let's say entertainment, where a lot of people have to come together to orchestrate a particular act, right? For knowledge professionals, this is the most natural way to work, because it's a mental sprint, right? So if I'm a product manager or if I'm a content strategist, right? So my creativity comes in bursts, right? So if I'm feeling the most creative, it wouldn't matter if it is 12 o'clock in the night. I just need clarity of goals, and I would just get it done, right? And also as knowledge professionals, right, we have sort of aggregated in cities which have also become commercially very, very successful cities, like let's say Bangalore or Silicon Valley, right? And they've outgrown the kind of capacity that they could sustain, right? And remote work also offers us a ticket to a better lifestyle, right? So you switch to remote and you could just go back to your hometown. You could actually go back to the best place that you always wanted to work. So that is one. So it is definitely here to stay, and this is definitely here to grow, right? The second part is about culture and making it work. So two core things which are important that I've realized is that you really have to get people who love what they do. because a carrot or a stick policy won't work in remote work, right?
Yeah.
So you have to find team members who are passionate about their trade, their craft, right? Remote enables you to reach out to such people, right? So since we are a remote company, we have been able to hire our, spread our team across 4 countries. You could potentially find passionate people across the globe, and that to me is the key criteria to make remote work, that you have to find people who are passionate about working, right? And the second thing is frequent and clear communication, right? So and that frequency could be synchronous or asynchronous, but then it has to be clear and frequent.
Yeah.
And your question around culture is that, culture is a natural outcome of whenever, some people have a combined objective. Like if you take any bunch of people, give them a combined objective, their internal dynamics and whatever they get comfortable with as dynamics becomes the culture, right? So what you can really, there is some bit of a control in creating a culture, but then we sort of incline towards making it more result oriented and more transparent. Yeah, so other trait is definitely they should be very, very, like in their mind they are clear about that they want to remain a remote professional, right? People shouldn't be tentative in their mind that let me try out a remote setup if it works or not, right? So people who have made up their mind that they would always stay remote, that's a clear sort of a decision making criteria for us. We've actually had conversations, and in the end we realized that the person is not clear about his remote working status, so we have had to roll back the offer, right? So that is one. And second, definitely you have to be passionate about whatever you're doing. And third is that you have to be a clear communicator, right? We've made some concessions on the communication skills, but then we have realized that in a remote setup, communication is probably the most important thing, right? Because you have limited face time, and your ability to convince and convey your thoughts is crucial for collaboration, right? So that is the other thing that you're looking at. It's a lot easy to have conversations around funding because you're already known into the ecosystem. There are existing relationships which you can harp on to get introductions, right? And getting funding is like one of those once in a lifetime independent irreversible decisions, right, for the investors and also for the entrepreneur, right? And those one-time decisions are kind of leap of faith. It's like marriage, it's like picking up a first job. Those are leap of faith things, right? So and in those leap of faith decisions, people are looking for signals of trust, right? So as a second time founder, the working relationship that you have with some known people is basically a great trust building factor. That's the only advantage, right? And the second I would say personal advantage would be it sort of readies you with the challenges and the duration that the journey is going to be long. Yeah, the whole the intensity of the journey, that you're already aware of it, that this is going to be very intense, right? So you have this internal filter that becomes very accurate, that do you like an idea or not, right? Because for many first time founders, they end up starting something which they really don't feel passionate about, but they just got started, and now they love this CEO tag, they love this co-founder tag, that they're just living this journey, no matter how painful or how unexciting it might be for them. But for a second time founder, the internal calibration or that internal, I would say, filter, you really get to know that your gut becomes very strong, that this is not really worth 10 years, right? This idea is exciting but not really worth 10 years of my life. So that is the second advantage, that's a personal advantage.
Yeah.
And then you also become more aware about how people can take advantage of you in life. Try to be absolutely an absolute beginner in every journey. From a mindset perspective, right? Definitely there are learnings. Keep it on your desk to go back and refer to, but let that baggage not cloud your view of the world. For example, attaching too much of a pride to what I have done before is not really worth it, because this journey is going to demand absolutely same level of challenge, right? Same level of intense hard work, etc. Because I've seen people who whether they're first time founders or second time founders, the biggest mistake that they do is they just are in a rush to start, right? I personally don't really feel that there is any rush to start, because this is This is one of the most important things. It will define the next 4 to 5 years minimum of your life. So it should absolutely take as much time as required. And you should feel super excited, and I would say sleeplessly excited about an idea. Only then you should start. Angel list is a great. I'm like emotionally aligned to what angel list is, right? So angel list is a wealth equalizing, opportunity, right? So traditionally, venture capitalists have gone to people who have aggregated wealth from a previous era of, let's say, success, right? So typically, LPs are wealthy families, etc., right? And then it's so wealth actually then only so it gets channelized from a very different route. Angel list is that is a new way of democratizing venture capital, right? And startups are the fastest way to build wealth, right? And an angel list basically gives power to a common person. Definitely, it has to be an accredited investor, somebody who is doing decently well in life can actually, if they have some risk-taking ability, it allows them to participate in monumental companies, monumental wealth creation. There are pockets of communities, pockets of organizations where across the spectrum of the adoption curve, where people have discovered Airmeet and they've started to use Airmeet. Right? Our growth strategy would be, once we come out of beta, would be to basically make our communities refer more communities, right? So there are a lot of communities who just love using Airmeet. They've turned to be advocates, right?
Yeah.
And we just want to ride on their advocacy and get them to refer us more and more communities. And turns out they're hyper connected, right? So a blockchain community in India is connected to almost every blockchain community on the globe, right? So that relationship could help us reach to more and more communities. I think customer advocacy. That is a single significant signal that you have sort of built a brand, right? So if people are talking about you in a very positive sense, and which is happening actually on Twitter, we see every 2 hours somebody mentions about Airmeet, right? There is delight, right? So as somebody who's building an early stage product and also something which is technically complex, the robustness of on the promise, right? Robustness of delivery is a function of time and energy that you spend in that direction, right? But then the kind of empowerment that you give to a user, that is also a very strong signal of them becoming your advocate, right? Or them because sooner or later the robustness of the platform will come, right? But then what are you really empowering them to do, right? So that is something that people really cherish about Airmeet today. The brand Airmeet in the minds of the consumer is basically growth, ambition, and learning, right? So as a knowledge professional, whenever there is, let's say, whenever the thought of, let's say, growing comes to your mind, you should be able to think of Airmeet and come to Airmeet. I'm a parent to a 2-year-old daughter, so that's my way to unwind, and that's probably one of the most beautiful things in my life right now. And I just can't have enough of the fun times with my daughter, so that's how I unwind.